Welcome everybody to the seasonal diet, eating what our ancestors ate when they ate it, like we were evolved to do. So right now we're coming into a brand new part of the year where our ancestors would have had a big change in their diet. The springtime, and actually this is the most difficult time to find food for ancient humans. It was right about now. In the winter, we were kind of chilling out. We were eating, we were feasting, we were not working as much, we weren't burning as much calories, using as much energy, and as long as humans were well prepared for the winter with their stores and preserved things, they would have had really plenty of food in the winter. Lots of meat, lots of wild hunted game, fish, and once domesticated animals and preservation came along in history, they would have been eating dairy and preserved fruits and vegetables and things like that. We've done this for about 10,000 years now. So the winter really was not as difficult as people believe. The real hard part comes after the winter. It's in the spring, yeah. The weather starts to get nicer and we don't have to worry about the cold and disease that comes up in the winter sometimes, but the spring is actually the time where it was going to be the hardest in regards to food. That's because the winter stores were running out. All of our preserved food sources were running low, and we had just turned our livestock out to graze after taking care of them all winter, and they gave birth to their young and livestock, and it just doesn't make much sense to slaughter and kill the livestock we have now. And there's really no fresh fruits or plants growing yet, so it's still too earlier in the year. So there's here just a few months of very little to eat, and then starting in about June there would start to be food to harvest and we would have things there. But for now, we've got 2 or 3 months of struggle. What did they eat? What is the diet like at this time? Well, first, they fasted. All these fasting traditions that come up around this time, it's not just about religion, okay? The fasting for Lent, the Easter, the Fat Tuesday, the Mardi Gras stuff we find in different places in the world, a tradition of fasting around this time. It's supposed to sound Christian, but the pagans also fasted this way for health and spiritual reasons, even before Christianity came in. Not just that, there was very little food at this time of year anyway, so if there was a time to practice more fasting, it would be this time of year, just because there wouldn't be much of a choice. So instead of eating, 3 small shitty meals a day, it's probably a better idea to eat 1 decent-sized meal in the spring, and I do this a lot around this time now too. Second tip, plenty of dairy and eggs. These are food sources that would be increasing at this time. Tip 3, the longest preserved foods that could last until now, like the wheats or pickled or sweetened things, as long as these lasted the winter and the king didn't show up or something with his army at our homestead and expect to feast from us, most humans would have rationed and had some reserves to last us at least until this time. Tip number 4. Now, like I said, it doesn't make much sense to be slaughtering your livestock and eating their meat, but wild game and fish definitely would be good at this time. Now, you have to be careful if you go hunting. You don't want to go out in the spring and shoot Bambi's mother, and then the young ones don't survive. That's why hunting in most places in the spring is actually illegal, and ancient humans were not stupid, and they could figure that out. They didn't want to kill their food source and then kill the next generation too. So if they did hunt or slaughtered livestock of this tier, make sure it's the males, and preferably, if you want to go even further, make sure it's the weaker or smaller males, right? Leave the alphas and the bulls and the big ones alive, because it's those animals' breeding season coming up, and you want the livestock and the wild animals to breed and with the best partners and make a strong, healthy food source. Just a tip there. And of course, fish year-round as always. Final tip, herbs. These are actually the first things that start to grow fresh in the spring before all other edible plants. So at this time, humans would have had lots and lots of fresh herbs, leafy greens, and very early fruits that are in season in the spring that I will make a video on later this week. But the herbs would be dried too at this time, so they could be used later on in the year. So this is a big part of the work and activities in the spring too. Final thing is actually sweets. These are very, very easily preserved. We would have had good supply at this time. Jams, jellies, syrup, honey, and making those types of things into cakes and pies or pastries, whatever the native diets of the people are. Sugar would eventually be used if it came into Europe by then, but that was less than 1,000 years ago. So before that, we would have used honey or syrups or other sweeteners like that. But definitely sweets in the diet at this time, and it actually fits perfect at this time of year because you're not getting as many calories from other food sources like the rest of the year. So sweets and sugary things help fill in that calorie deficit so we don't lose too much weight at this time, and also so that we don't have too much sweets and turn into a fat ass because we're not eating much other things. That's what works out perfectly. So those are just some tips, changes that would have come in our ancestors' diet at this time. This is how I'm going to eat the next couple months until June, and then we start to see a switch, and I will speak about that all around that time.